Yes, Jews add a lot of credibility to their message, their evangelical activities elsewhere in the world, outside of Israel. So that's one of the reasons they're converting Jews. But also, it's not like they haven't succeeded in converting Jews, right? There are these organizations called Jews for Jesus, or I think that's one of the very active organizations that are promoting Jesus as Jews promoting Jesus as the Messiah.
Right. So I want to comment on something you said. You said that you're a mythicist. Um, but even if, e- even that you're a mythicist, that isn't relevant to Christians. Christians are not mythicists, obviously. So that means whether Jesus existed or did not exist historically, if there was such a figure in the first century, the Christians believe that he really did exist. He was a historical figure, and therefore it bothers them a lot. It would not bother you, or would not bother Robert Price, Dr. Price, but it really bothers the Christians an enormous amount. The question is, what am I doing? So the only response, the only possible response is education. That means if education, if empowerment of knowledge is not the answer, then everything we're doing is wrong. The Jewish people cherish knowledge and wisdom. This is a very big part of our culture, is having knowledge, having wisdom, understanding, delving into the text. Every Jewish child raised in a Jewish home could read Hebrew as a first language, and Hebrew is the national language of my country. So therefore, you can't fool Jews who are knowledgeable because they know. The Jews who join Jews for Jesus, these Jews, unfortunately, are Jews who are not educated in the Jewish scriptures, and therefore, of course, they could make this mistake. So everything is about education. Let's look back at the Jewish Bible. Let's learn about what the Messiah is supposed to do. What is the Messiah? What does that mean? See, the danger is that Christians and Jews are both using the word Messiah, same word, but we mean something completely different, and people don't know that. We're using the same word like Satan, we use words like heaven, but we mean something utterly different. We use words like monotheism, but we mean something entirely different when we use those words. So you have to be very aware of that. So the beginning and end of everything is education. Knowledge is power. And if people understand about the root of the faith, then they will be able to detect the counterfeit immediately. Let me tell you something interesting. I was lecturing in Washington. It's actually in Virginia, in Fairfax, right outside the capital of the United States, at a synagogue. Met a fellow who works for the for the Secret Service of the United States, federal agency. His job is not to protect the president or any official. His job is to protect the currency of the United States, which is like a world standard. And the Secret Service has a very important role. It's a very central core role, mandate, is to make sure that counterfeits do not make it into the economic system. The counterfeiters are caught. And I asked them, how do you do this? Do you have agents studying different kinds of counterfeit money that's been confiscated over the years? And he said, no, Rabbi, that's not the way we train agents. He said the way we train our agents how to immediately detect counterfeit currency is we show them real money, real currency. American dollars are printed on a paper. There is no other paper like it in the world. And they know exactly what it feels like. They're very complex, fine line engravings and shifting watermarks in a genuine dollar and genuine American currency. And if an agent knows real money very well in every aspect of what to find real money, if you dare put a counterfeit in his hand, he will know it immediately. What am I saying to you? I'm saying that in order to know what the counterfeit is, know what the real thing is. Go back to the original. Understand the original text. If you know the original text, then no one will be able to fool you with a counterfeit. And that's our message. Knowledge, empowerment, learn the real thing. You'll detect a counterfeit immediately.
Very well said. To identify the counterfeit, first know the original.
So, Rabbi, I have another question. Is one of the constant questions that has been asked to me is India a tolerant country, a religiously tolerant country? And more than once I have said, if you want to know whether India is a tolerant country, then you need to ask the Jews who lived in India. I'm sure you are aware that we have synagogues in India. And as per what I read and what I've heard, probably the only country in the world where Jews were not persecuted was India. In
Right.
such a context, don't you think it's ironical that people still say that there is no religious freedom in India? I will also substantiate this because it is not the question of practicing or professing a religion what matters here, especially the Christian community. What they want is they want to indulge in conversion. And when there are steps taken to counter it, it's called religious intolerance. And the Hindus are brandished and blamed, saying that they're intolerant. It's like this: you can practice your faith, but when you are trying to force your faith on others, the Hindus are waking up to it today. And that's been branded as extremism. Probably as a child, the only time I heard, apart from the Bible, about a Jew was uh, Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. Shylock. Shylock is the villain, and this every possible child in this. It's a curriculum, part of the curriculum. And if you actually read the whole book, then your hatred towards the Jews only builds up. So that's the kind of strategy what I see has been used to demonize the Jew. And if you look at the Christian Bible, it's only demonizing the Jews, whether it's a Good Samaritan story or you name the story where you find a Jew who has not listened to Jesus. So aren't these strategies, what kind of new strategies are being used in Israel?
Okay, this is very interesting because there's a lot of information coming at me. What is very striking about The Merchant of Venice is that Shakespeare never met a Jew in his life. The Merchant of Venice was written during the 16th century, at a time when there were no Jews in England. Jews were expelled from England. It was only many decades after Shakespeare died that Jews were allowed to return to England. For many centuries, Jews were expelled from England. Most people don't know this, but with the exception of Ireland, Jews were expelled from every single European country, all of them Christian, of course, which is mind-blowing. Which is even more mind-blowing is that all of Shakespeare's views about the Jewish people, which of course is very prominent in this play, all comes from the Christian characterization of the Jew. And the Jews are characterized in a certain way as a villain throughout the Gospels. And therefore, Shakespeare wasn't foolish. When he had to create the villain, he knew exactly who, to make sure that the villain, not the hero, was the Jew, or else the play would have never taken off and he would have never become such a big success story. If anybody in England, in 16th century England, would have written, books about, how fantastic the Jews are, the books would have been thrown in the garbage and the person who wrote them would have been burnt at the stake alive. So, so anyway, so that's what's amazing is that it is this caricature of the Jew in going back as far as the canonical gospel, the canonical texts, 27 books in the Christian Bible, the works of the apostolic fathers, the writings of the church fathers. They all were viscerally anti-Jewish. Christians are not insane. Christians have been poisoned by this because they're reading, as you said, they're just reading, just pouring at them. The Jew is the villain. He's the worst person in the world. And therefore, you don't need to read the Jewish Bible. You don't compare anything. Of course the Jews are the enemies of God. Of course they killed God. Of course, no matter how ridiculous that is that you can kill God. But of course they can do it. Why? Because they're so evil. If you tried saying that the Swedes killed God, people wouldn't believe it. What do you mean? Swedes are nice, blonde-haired people. They didn't do any of that stuff. That's silly. If you said the Eskimos killed God, you go, are you insane? If someone said the Puerto Ricans killed God, people go, you're out of your mind. So, you see, it's funny, right? But it wouldn't work. The story just would never work if you said the Italians killed God. Italians, they're too busy making spaghetti. You know, as it turns out, according to the Christian Bible, it was the Italians, namely the Romans. It was Rome that killed Jesus. Yet no one blames the Italians for it. No one says, oh, those Italians are a bunch of Christ killers. Never. You never heard that in your whole life. How did that happen? Do you know that in Ethiopian Christianity, Pontius Pilate, the very person that sentences Jesus to be crucified, is a saint in Ethiopian Christianity. That is mind-blowing. He's venerated. People in Ethiopian Christianity pray to Pontius Pilate as a saint. This you can lose your mind hearing this. So I wanted to share this with you. Meeting Christians personally changed my entire world around, upside down, because I was as a child. I only knew Christians that hated me. I never met a nice Christian as a child. I was born 15 years after the Holocaust. All I knew was that Christians wanted to kill us, and I couldn't imagine why, and I thought they were all insane. I really did. I never met any Indians as a kid. We just didn't interact with them. But in New York, you had Christians, whether Italian, Protestant, whatever. So when I thought that people who were not Jewish must have been insane because they hate me for a reason that I don't know. They always cursed me, always. Never. If I walked as a youngster, walked past a bunch of Christians on the street, if I was lucky, they'd spit at me. That's if I was lucky. I usually would have to run away as fast as I can and cross the other side of the street so they wouldn't attack me. That's how I lived my life. So I thought they were all crazy. They're all nuts. What happened is that two things happened as a young adult. First thing is I met some very nice Christians. They're really nice people. And two is I read the Christian Bible and I began to study it. And I realized where this hatred comes from. They're reading these texts that characterize the Jew in such a toxic way that, of course, they hate us. Of course the church fathers despised us. Look where they're getting their information from. And that changed my view of Christians, because then I said, oh, these are really nice people whose their minds have been poisoned. You pointed out Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice was written, 1595, 1596? Of course, that was Shakespeare's view. Why? Because Shakespeare met Jews and he had a bad experience with a Jew? He never met a Jew. He was only poisoned by the world that he lived in, which was entirely Christian. And there is the whole story.
In fact, I remember reading it many years back as probably in the 7th grade, but I still remember the words, a couple of words, sentences. It says, not a drop of Christian blood will fall on the ground. I remember that. And the second thing is this, a pound of Christian flesh. So these are the things which Shylock asks. So these things have had a lasting experience on and an impression on people.
Yeah, so this strategy of demonizing a particular sect that stands in opposition to anything that Christians say and do has been in practice since long. I mean, since the canonical times,
That's right.
since the
That's
New
right.
Testament times.
That's
And
right.
today in India, if you take any popular movie or a series, all the antagonists are Hindus invariably, and all the good people are everybody that's not a Hindu, like Christians and Muslims.
Hmm.
So
So this we've been seeing for many years, but it's just now that Hindus are waking up to this fact. For all these years, all these decades, we've been taking it as creativity, so to say. And a lot of times we didn't even pay attention that something like this was going on. So off late, we see this more aggressively being played out, and people are waking up to this fact. So yes, this is one of their strategies.
in fact, if you look at the Indian context also, uh, unlike, for example, Israel is a different ball game, India is a different ball game. If you look at the Indian context, uh, very clearly targeting Hindus. For example, Thomas came to India, opposed to one of the 12 disciples came to India. This is what has been preached, which has been rubbished by the previous Pope, said that he would not have come to India. Now, when you look at Thomas having come to India 2000 years back, the story that is being built is this: that a Hindu priest killed killed him with a spear. He became a martyr in India, and he was killed by a Hindu priest. Can you believe it? The kind of a story that is being built so that the hatred on the Hindus builds up. So every other sections of the society, if you see, the villain here in India is a Hindu. So much so to say that there is a class called the Brahmin society. The Brahmins are the ones who are the priests, who are learned, and they are being brandished as the villains in the Christian world. Just to throw that into the conversation. So I'm sure they would have employed the same such strategies across the globe wherever they went, so that they could pin the particular indigenous civilizations and show the Christians as an upper class or the victimhood or anything of that sort. So there's one more thing. What I wanted to ask is this: there is this anti-missionary law which is being implemented in Israel. Uh, you're aware of it, Rabbi. I remember
I
because
would think so.
yeah, and also I
Yeah.
wanted to bring to this discussion uh, the way God channel, an evangelical channel, came into Israel and it was asked to live also.
That's right.
Yeah, could you throw light on that?
Yeah. So let me explain this part. Let me explain this because Israel is a free country, and people are free to practice their religion. There are very specific laws in this country that relate to missionaries. In this country, it is against the law to try to convert a minor, someone under 18 years old. That's against the law. And that is on the basis on which we were able to get God TV, which was going to broadcast on regular cable television, children as well. They were removed from the air. So in this country, you can't evangelize minors. Now, the evangelicals have all kinds of games to get around that. What they do is they have their children evangelize other children, because it's against the law for an adult to evangelize a child, but there's no law that a 10-year-old can't try to convert another 10-year-old. So they have all kinds of games like that, where they'll go to places where children play in the parks and so on, and missionaries will leave pamphlets there oriented toward children using cartoons and so on. They try to get around that. So the law in Israel is, number one, that you're not allowed to try to convert someone who is under the age of 18, a child. The other law is that you cannot provide remuneration for conversion, meaning you can't pay somebody, you can't provide a financial incentive to convert to Christianity. That's against the law as well. To any religion, you can't do that. So, and those are the only laws. There have been laws that were raised in the parliament here in Israel called the Knesset to try to outlaw evangelism in general, but those efforts have not yet been successful. So those are the laws here in Israel. But otherwise, I mean, look, there are 200,000 Christians living in Israel. And they don't have to worry that Jews are going to try to convert them. They don't have to worry that Jews are going to try to convert their children. That's not going to happen. People here have complete religious freedom. Just stay away from our children. Don't try to convert our kids. Don't get involved in this charade where becoming a Christian is really becoming a Jew. Don't play these games, because then it's false advertising. Then you're engaging in a fraud, and that's something that I confront.
So what's the Christian representation in the parliament? What percentage?
Oh, very, very small. I want to think this through for a moment. So there are 120 seats in parliament, and how many Christians are there? I don't know. There may be two, maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing. So one other thing about the Christians that are here, I mentioned there are 200,000, and that is that they're Arabs. They're Arab Christians. And the Arab Christians are almost all Roman Catholics. Not all, but almost all Roman Catholic. I'm talking about people who actually are just citizens of Israel. They're almost all Roman Catholic. And Roman Catholics today are not interested in converting Jews. So therefore, the 200,000 Arabs, so it's possible that in what's called the Joint List, which is it's a coalition of a number of Arab parties or Islamic parties, that there might be a Arab Christian there. I don't recall offhand. It's possible. But whoever that person is, I can assure you, the last thing on his mind or her mind is trying to convert Jews. It's these people that are coming from abroad, getting all sorts of visas, and then coming here doing their work. There are some evangelical Christians who live here, are citizens of Israel, but it's not very much. It's from the outside coming in.
So there are no laws that prevent a person coming to the country on a visitor's visa indulging in conversion activities?
No, none. No, there's no law like that in this country. Now, it is true that I have a very large YouTube channel. I have, about 11 million viewers. So, and I speak extensively. I used to do a lot of public speaking. Now with this plague that the whole world is dealing with, there's no public events. So anybody who comes in here trying to pull a stunt like that and try to convert the Jews, I am going to make this country and people around the world know about that. And they're going to be, and it's going to bring whatever, social pressure, whatever it is, people are going to know. And I'm going to make sure of that. So it's not illegal. That means they're engaging in a practice that is considered, it's just taboo. It's very offensive to us. The Jews see the land of Israel as an oasis, a place where we escape Christianity. This is where we came so we don't have to live under the heels of the church. This is our oasis. The whole state of Israel is 25,000 square kilometers. It's a very tiny place, little country. Country you can drive from the north to the south in just 4 or 5 hours. That's it. You can go from the east to the west in this country. You can drive it in an hour without traffic. That's how small this country is. Very tiny place. And we came here to escape persecution in Christian countries. Not in India, not in China, but in countries that are Christian, and other countries, and Muslim countries as well. So this is just like in India, there are certain cultural norms that if you violate them, it's considered a very serious taboo. It depends on what state in India you're in, but there are cultural norms and there are very strong taboos in India. Here, running around trying to destroy the Jewish faith by evangelizing is considered extremely repulsive to the Jewish people. And the way we responded, we don't use violence, we don't do any of those things. We don't need to. We use education and we bring it to light.
Yes. Rabbi, my question is, what is the message that you want to give to the Hindus in India?
The problem is that I would tell the Hindus in India to study the Jewish scriptures. I just don't know how that rings with Hindus. I'll be frank with you. I never engaged in my life in theological discussions with Hindus. I met many, but I just never engaged in them. It was always a very pleasant discussion, and Hindus in every case have an enormous respect for my faith that I've met in my life. Maybe there are some that don't. I just never met that person. Remember what I said earlier. If you want to understand about a counterfeit, the way to do that is to study the Jewish scriptures, to be educated, to have that power, to know what the Jewish Bible says. And if you understand the original, then no missionary will be able to rob you of your faith. That would be my message.
So I want to end this by saying that you haven't met a Hindu who hates a Jew is because such a Hindu does not exist.
Yeah.
Hindus are known for their tolerance, as we've already spoken. So you will never meet a Hindu that would hate not just a Jew, but anybody.
I'll tell you a crazy, I know I'm interrupting, I'll tell you a crazy thing. I never met a Hindu that tolerated me. Every Hindu I met, and I met many, respect me and respect my faith. It's not just they tolerate or put up or allow Jews to practice freely. No, it's much more than that. Hindus celebrate my faith, respect the monotheism of Judaism, adore what we consider to be sacred. So I will say this to you, I've never been tolerated by a Hindu. I've always been cherished, admired, and respected by Hindus all my life. And that's never changed. So we're done with being tolerated. We really want to be respected. And we are by Hindus, and I wanted to make that point. But I understand what you're saying, and I wanted to convey that to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for correcting me and adding that there. So you're not just tolerated, you're respected, even on this show and by the viewers of this show too. You've suggested the Hindus to get enlightened about the Jewish scriptures. So I would definitely partner with you in bringing that education to them, since I'm involved in educating the Hindus about the Bible, both the Hebrew and the Greek scriptures. So I can definitely partner with you, learn some Hebrew from you, and then probably bring them the education that they require to counter conversions in their neighborhoods, workplaces, and schools and colleges.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful thing. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Rabbi, for your time. And thank you, Jerome, for joining us. And we will continue this conversation, and probably we can get together for a series of videos on theological matters.
I look forward to it. Thank you. I thank both of you for having me on. It really was a joy. Not to be tolerated, but to be respected by both of you. I really enjoyed this program.
That's the Indian way of life. Indian way of life is to accept everybody the way they are. Thank you so much.
That's it. And thank you, and shalom to both of you.
Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, viewers, for watching, and I will see you in another episode. Until then, namaste.